Is the mathematics and science study. The United States, and if you look, I'm on page 2, and in the 7th grade, was 7th ranked in 4th grade in reading. This was out of 44 countries. I'm sorry, not 44 countries. It was can't remember countries somewhere, maybe 65 countries, but we were 49 countries. I'm sorry, there it is. So we were 7th in 4th grade reading. We ranked 9th in 8th grade math, and we ranked. Can you see enough? That's what that rank is with 12th grade students, and then we were 12th ranked in 4th grade math, and we were 12th ranked in the 8th grade science. So, and if you look at the bottom, the next one shows, this is a comparison with ACT in Mississippi. I'm on the second page down at the bottom rank. It compared ACT scores, the first four, as Mississippi compared to the other parts of the nation. You know, how did we do as a state? So, in Mississippi, in English, we were 53rd, in the 53rd percentile, while the rest of the states, or the other average for the state, the nation averaged 67. In Algebra 2, we ranked, I can't read that number, while the rest of the states ranked 46. But if you look at the ranks among the states in Mississippi, you see that Mississippi fell behind. One of the screens that I have in my PowerPoint, or if my computer were connected, was it showed a surgical suite, and it started out with a surgical suite in the 1900s. And you can imagine what a surgery suite looked like in the 1900s. And yet you had your classrooms there that were lined up in straight lines with the teacher teaching in front of them. Then it had the surgical suite that moved on to the 1950s with that same classroom with kids lined up in a straight line learning. Then we moved on to the 1980s with just about our same type teaching lined up, kids lined up in the row teaching them the same way. Then you came to the surgical suite of 2010. And you can imagine what a surgery suite looks like compared to what it looked like in the 1900s. And then our classroom still kind of, just about looking the same. So it was, our children today, and I give this example very often, is, when I went to school, and I see some of you are about my age, and we got ready to do a research paper, we had to go to the library, and we had to pull encyclopedias, you had to pull books, and we even had to go to Stacks and get, if you remember, periodicals that told you could go find such and such magazine, and it would be on this page of that magazine to find this information. Our kids today can type in a question in their phone, in their computer, and pops the answer in about 2 seconds. They have more information in their hand than we had in any library that we could have ever gone to try to search. So what we're trying to do is teach children, what Common Core standards we're trying to do is teach children how to use the information that they have readily available to them. It's to teach children that in the past we have we have looked at asking children, what do you think about this story? Now, with Common Core, they might say, you tell me on this story, what was the author's feelings? To where they have to go back in, they have to, what we call evidence to text, find it in that text, and they have to tell you what the author is quoting in that text, which is a way that we did research papers when we grew up. If you did a research paper, you had to go research and you had to find what that author was saying. You had to quote what that author, or you had to footnote that author, give him credit for the information you were taking, and relay it back to him. This is what we're moving toward, or not well, I guess we are moving toward, because this is what they said, these are the standards that you're going to do. We have always, I'm not going to say we've always had standards, because I walked into this district 36 years ago. I didn't know what a standard was until probably 82, 83 was when the push came for a big change, and we started to do what we called implementing education plans. Our first plan was called INF. The second one was called AIM, and we went to Goals 2000. and we've moved on to NCT2 and state standards, and now we've moved to Common Core. So we've always had standards. You will hear people say, Pearson has a monopoly on this. As long as I've been in the school district, we have bought Scott Forsman and Pearson books. We have had tests that just about the same book companies are doing. We have the opportunity to buy any book that we feel like best meets our children's needs. But let's face it, if you know a certain company's writing a test, what you gonna go with? To me, you've got to teach it, you've got to prepare the children the best way you can prepare them. So, that's one of the things, but when it's to, like I said, it's not telling the children, the teacher, how you're gonna teach, but it's telling them what I want my student to know. At which standard level we get to, this is what your child should know. And if you look on page 3, what they come out to want, they want to make problems. They want children to solve problems. They want children to be able to manage themselves, to adapt to change, to analyze and conceptualize, to reflect on or improve their performance, to communicate, to work in teams, to create, moderate, and critique, and engage in learning throughout lifetime. Who knows what a job's going to hold 10 years from now? Think about all the changes just since computers came about in the late 80s, early 90s, or late 90s maybe even. But all the changes that we've seen from then to right now. You go into Walmart right now and you've got your self-check thing that you're sitting there checking and putting in a bag. Who knows what jobs are going to be. So we have to prepare our children to be problem solvers, to be critical thinkers, so that no matter what the job is, we're going to prepare them for the future. So, and the way we're doing that is prepare them to become technical readers. It's just not, okay, let's just read for enjoyment, and you tell me back what this, we're trying to teach them this is what we need to know in order to be technical readers. You've got to be able to pick this magazine up, be able to read this magazine. For instance, if I had a magazine, maybe I could figure out what's wrong with this computer tonight, but since I was not born in that age, or if I had more than these children, they could probably hook it up and get it running, but that was not my age, so I had to do the best I can do with it. So if anybody else is around here that knows it any better than I am, I'll welcome you to try to come fix it up for me. But, where the colleges are having higher demands, we looked at, I think at the present time, students stepping into our community colleges and universities, they were going in with a lot of remedial courses. Right now, they've got a grant that remedial course will not pay for those first courses they take until they can get past the remedial courses. The Common Core has a lot of, and I'm not telling you I'm 100% advocate for Common Core, but the thing I like about it is it's teaching children to think, it's teaching children to research, it's teaching children to become writers, because they have to learn to write that research paper. They have to learn to present a PowerPoint presentation in 3rd grade. They have to learn to write a half-page essay in 3rd grade, and that essay progresses as they get longer. So not only are they learning the skills, but they're having to learn the computer. They're learning how to go back and research to find information to research. Is it different? It is different. Is change hard? Change is definitely hard. We can get comfortable and we can say, well, this is the way we've always done it. Folks, if the way we've done it in the past is not meeting the needs of what people are looking for our children to get out in the workforce and be productive, we're failing our children. The level of vocabulary, and we have held off to buy in Picayune to buy textbooks because we didn't have money to buy textbooks 3 years ago and then to come up to figure out what a test would look like and then have to turn around and buy other textbooks. So we waited until this year to buy textbooks. The vocabulary that they start giving those children in kindergarten, I told somebody, I am ashamed because I have failed children in the past. Because we just took for granted that those kids couldn't learn that vocabulary. And it's amazing what you can walk in and see a kindergarten and a 1st grade, the words that you can see a kindergarten and 1st grader being able to give back to you. And and it's like I said, in the past I failed them because, I didn't put my standards up there for them where they should have been. And that's some of the part of this program that I truly, truly love. It's a vocabulary that they're being introduced to. And not only introduced to, but they're coming back and they're using that vocabulary. They're applying that vocabulary. So, yes, we're all afraid of it. Yes, it's different. Yes, our teachers are saying, and somebody said the teachers are overworked, they don't have time. I'm the #1 person to say, We need time to plan teachers. Not only do we have Common Core, there's about 10 new initiatives that we have to try to teach our teachers to do. And you're gonna pull them out of the classroom and fail our children? Are we gonna, how are we gonna train them? That's a big question that I have. That's where I come back and say, how are we supposed to truly prepare them for this? Because in order for it to work, it's truly prepared. I was in DC last week for a national meeting, and one of the things they said is, if we want to change in Common Core, if you want to change, ask your federal government, not your state legislators. Ask the federal legislators to go through and reauthorize ESEA, which is your Elementary and Secondary School Act. That's the one that began in 1964. That's the one that was reauthorized with No Child Left Behind. That's where we have to go, if we want changes. But like I said, is it that I agree with every part of this? No. And is it that I feel like that some children are going to struggle? Yes. And one of the hardest parts of my job is to sit and look at a senior and tell that baby, I'm sorry you're not going to graduate because you didn't pass the state test. I'm sorry, but I'm just passionate. And that part of me says, but we've got to prepare them. We cannot wait to state test year and try to prepare them for everything they need to know. A lot of kids who struggle on state tests struggle because they don't know the vocabulary. They don't know, when you get to U.S. history, that's our biggest struggle right now. They're not knowing what a server is. They're not knowing what, all these questions that they're asking on that. That's a totally new vocabulary that they've never been introduced to. They don't hear at home. And it's hard to, you cannot expect that 11th grade U.S. history teacher to come in and teach all the vocabulary those kids need to know. That's where we've got to back it up at an earlier age and make sure they're getting it from grade 1, they're starting at those stepping stones, and we're meeting it. This is what we're doing in kindergarten, this is what we're doing first grade until we get into 12th grade. As far as math goes, math is applying your everyday. It's, not only did they just tell you that, a lot of times in class, your kids can just rattle off those addition facts, and well, why is that? Say 4 plus 5 is 9. Why is that 9? Because my teacher told me it was. Now we start in kindergarten with those kids working with manipulatives, working with numbers. And in kindergarten, all they learn is the cardinality system. The cardinality system is numbers. They're learning numbers from playing with numbers. Getting to base 10, knowing that whenever I got 10 together, I can build those up, and now this is a group of 10. I've got 10 and 2 more, 10 and 2 ones or 3 ones, that's 10 and 2 ones is 12. Somebody told me, well, Vera, if they can justify an answer, they can justify anything. I said, and it's right. And I said, hey, you don't justify something that's not correct. What Common Core tells you that if the way I do 45 times 15, if I work it out on the board, and some of you probably had teachers in this like this, and I might be just as guilty as any other teacher. 45 plus 10, you're going to go through and you're going to work my steps out, and this is what your answer is going to be. And if you don't work out every step that I have, but you can come out with the right answer, your answer's wrong because you hadn't shown me your work. Has anybody ever had that done before? One of the things with Common Core is to show children that there's different ways to come up with the same answer. There's not just one way to get the answer. There's different ways to come up with an answer. So with math, it's applying real world problems. Some of the things that it tells us with math is, some of the examples which I thought was really good. Get your kindergarten child, or to sit back, and I've jumped to page 9. I hope I can even read this, and probably not the one that I'm talking about that stuck out of my mind today. But you get a measuring cup and you measure them into thirds. Let the child measure that measuring cup into thirds 3 different times. You get a fourth of measuring cup and let them measure that 3 times. What do they end up with? They end up with 3/4. And then you can tell them, okay, if I take 1/4 3 times, what do I get? I get 3/4. But it's them working through the problem, visualizing the problem, and then coming up with real world situations, and then being able to explain to you, this is how I got my answer. You know, when you say, how do you know your answer is 3 4s? They can tell you. You know, I used its scores 3 different times, or I know that 3 times 1 is, but it's just not giving us those rote numbers anymore. It's explaining, it's telling you why this is what it is, you know, why this is the answer. With math, it's set up, and like I said, we had our visuals, but I think Ms. Alford might even have, but it's gonna show you that, in kindergarten, they do cardinality. When they get to, and always before, on our standards that we have in math, we had, base 10, we had algebraic thinking, we had geometry, measurement, and, problem solving. Well, now, you know, in kindergarten, they're just doing the cardinality. When they get to first, second, third, Miss Alford, help me. Have you got the progressions? I don't have with me, but like first, second, third, fourth, they might do geometry and you know, something else. They do not actually get into that fraction part until, you know, 5th grade now. Is where they're supposed to start, you know, coming to.
My son's in 2nd grade and they're doing fractions.
They're playing with fractions, but
As far as addition, subtraction, you know, unlike numbers.
they're adding up, subtracting fractions, or they're just being introduced to fractions.
They're supposed to be playing with fractions.
And they probably are. But tell me what school you're in.
I'm scared too now.
No, there's nothing wrong.
Really,
South side.
But this is why though, is because everybody remember this is a transition year. So they still have their state curriculum, and it was okay for them to still dip into that because it's a big change. And then they also have Common Core. So you have a year this year that you have students that are getting some of both.
Yeah,
So it's okay.
Well, and my son's in the, you know, elevated.
The higher group that they're trying to do that, but as far as coming to where they start actually, and I hate to tell you this because I didn't bring my glasses, because of no, you know, and I'm not sure that I have it on here, but, as far as telling you exactly which level, but it's later on to where they have to start adding and subtracting and using functions, but it's to build those building blocks so that they've got a strong foundation. You know, the foundation is being built strong enough that they're not gonna fall back and miss something. A wonderful example of this is, you know, I have a son who, and you know, he, scored high enough on his ACT that when he got to college, they thought, oh, you don't need pre-Cal, you just go to calculus. Well, he did okay in Cal 1, but then he got to be Cal 2, and he said, Mama, I don't know this trig and this, you know, that I missed back in pre-Cal. Which is, you know, that was the stepping stones that he should have went back and done, you know, started them. But, you know, just because your score's high enough doesn't mean that you've got all the basics that it's gonna take to get there. But, you know, it's stepping stones, building blocks, that we got. I will be the first one to tell you, I feel like we test students far, far, far too much. I feel like tests are held, you know, here. But do I think it's a bad thing? I mean, as far as testing them all the time, I feel like that when we started the testing, this last part of the testing, I would say since the 1990s or the late 90s or whenever it started, we began to feel we were held accountable. You know, our scores were going to be there. So, you know, it began to put accountability not just on the teacher, but on the school district and further on up. So yes, accountability has been a good thing, not all bad. But you know, when you look at a score, which this year is a transition year, and next year these students are actually going to have to be tested on this Common Core. We're doing field test this week, and did you do? Is this first day of ELA today? Yeah, when you get to day 3, you're gonna have to go back and look at what you did in day 1 and what you did in day 2, and then you're gonna have to come write this essay type thing on it. And last week is where it started, and we just got all these things saying, oh my gosh, these kids aren't taking their time to go back and research, but it's probably truly because we have not told them to go back and look at this day's work and this day's work to come up with your final product.
Well, that being said, where are they supposed to start this program? You think it'd really be fair? My son's be in 11th grade next year. You think it'd be fair to dump this off on him in 11th grade? to the 12th
Be
grade?
thankful that he's in 11th grade, cause he's not in camp. It's not for camp for him. Be thankful that he's in 11th grade, because it's not gonna, it's not gonna
It's
count
not
for him.
it's
It
not
will
gonna
not.
take effect.
No,
Where's it gonna start at
it's not
now?
gonna affect him. We have not been told everything about when these tests, we know that along with this test came the teacher evaluation, what they call INSTAR, which is a booger. It 21, 22 standards that the teachers have to go through. But there's also the principal evaluation, which goes through and sets up the goals that the principal's gonna meet in his room, and then from there is the superintendent evaluation. So not only, is it the students, this waiver brought about the teacher evaluation, the principal evaluation, and the student the superintendent evaluation. They had told us that they would not use those scores until 16, 17 to terminate somebody.
Now,
Yeah.
is this only going towards state schools or all schools? Picayune is not a state school.
Yeah, Picayune's a state.
Picayune here saying
Picayune
the
has their own
exact same.
budget.
Well, it's a municipality. Picayune is a municipality,
Right.
but we are a state school.
They have
It's-
the same programs as Carrier.
Yes.
We-
And-
we function exactly.
Yeah,
the
I mean,
same.
we're following the same set of standards for the 42 states who have adopted them. And you'll hear some states that say they've opted out of Common Core. Really, they have not opted out of Common Core, they have opted out of the assessments they've opted out of Park, or they've opted out of Smarter Ballots, who are the two consortiums that write tests. And there's a place that you can go to in Park, it's PARCC, and there's a place that you can go on there and look at practice tests. I tried to go, but my computer went open, so, to print them out and to look at them. But, the test is a 3-day test. Like I said, on that third day, when he gets there, you're gonna have to go back and look at the 2 days prior, pull information from those 2 days and come up with a research project, or, to write that 2 or 3 page paper that I'm telling you about. Scoring what grade they're in, is how long they expect that paper to be.
All right, and as of that, what about on the teacher side? You got a crowding problem in Carrier. When I graduated Carrier, we was lucky to have 60 students in one room. They got, how many is in your grade? And you're the 10th grade.
Well, in that grade, there's a
And
law.
you got a shortage of teachers
Well,
now.
And the thing is, there is a law that says that teacher can have no more than 30 in that class time, or if they're subject area, they can serve no more than 150 students in that. Because like if it's if you've got an advanced class and you've got 32 kids, you're not gonna say, these two can't take it, because, so you can kind of go through and fiddle with those two numbers back here on the backside with the class that might not be quite up to par,
Well, there's more work on the students. It's gonna be more work on the teachers.
It's definitely more work on the
Now,
teachers.
they're gonna be saying, I want more
You see
money.
these gray hair? I didn't have many until this started.
Yeah.
I have a kind of two-part question. In the beginning of your talk, and maybe I misunderstood, did you say that before Common Core, our standard, Mississippi standards, were the same as Mississippi?
No, not before Common Core.
Okay.
Before Common Core, Mississippi had Mississippi standards.
And they were not up there? Okay. So, okay, and then you said this year they're kind of doing state and trying to move
Yeah.
toward Common
Yeah.
Core. And that is something, before they were doing adding and subtracting of fractions in second grade. So with Common Core moving that to 5th grade, aren't we kind of,
No, you're
Dumbing
not,
down?
no, you're putting more rigor at the grade that they're in. You're trying to make sure, as I was telling you, my son who
Right.
skipped to pre-cal and went to calculus and then got to cal 2 and was, Mama, I missed these skills down here. We're trying to make sure that this foundation here is built before we try to step them
it
up.
almost seems like busy work. Instead of saying, and well, let me
Yeah,
explain.
I know, but
Okay, 2 + 2 is 4. Why is it? Okay, we can show them. But having to write, when it's 68 plus 32, and they have to do 68 little circles, and then 32 little circles.
why are they doing that? Why are they not using their 6 tens.
Well, because
and
they
then-
have to group 10, and then 10, and then 10, and then 10.
But they should be teaching them a bundle. I mean, and truly, math is going to be the hardest thing, and I had teachers last week that came in and said, you know.
Every teacher I've spoken to is like,
Well, and-
And that's the thing, remember that any change is very hard. I mean,
and I
we know
understand that.
Any
I
change is hard.
I'm not looking to make my 7-year-old understand calculus at 7.
Yeah, no.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And there's, okay, as an example, Picayune has chosen not to teach cursive, isn't that correct? Okay, are we going to teach cursive? I understand it's a choice in Common
But-
Core.
No,
It's-
no, that
it's-
has nothing
not.
to do
No,
with, that's not Common
that's not
Core.
even part of Common Core, that's.
And that's what, be cautious, cause there's
Well,
so
that's
many
why-
things being said, oh, that's Common Core. There's in another state, not ours, so I'll go ahead and say this, there was this big rise up about, and so I'm just going ahead, about sex education, and parents started saying, that's a part of Common Core. That is
No,
nowhere
that's
in. So just be careful when you hear things, and that's the good thing about tonight. Hey, you may get back in your office or your home, you have a face now
Are we
with us.
teaching cursive?
That is a school decision. It has nothing to do with
A school or a district?
well, we only have one school per, so that's
So
it's a district
they should be-
decision.
Third grade, they should be starting to be cursive.
So we will be learning cursive in Picayune.
It's like Braille.
Okay. Well, I mean, okay, yeah, well, I mean, that's the kind of things that I need to know. I want my child to be able to read the original Declaration of Independence.
Common Core.
You know, I'm told that when he takes his test in 3rd grade, it's timed on the computer.
And it is, it's time.
Okay, so when are they being taught keyboarding? Not many 7 or 8-year-olds can time.
And that's what I
type.
was about to say. Just remember that. Will cursive writing be like it was when we all went to school? I mean, I was in school. I mean, y'all can look at me. I've been in education 8 years. I'll say that. I don't have 38 years. Vera is my go-to lady all the time. But when I was in school, we cursive. We spent units of time. Okay, just like I'm sure you all did. Units. Or is it going to be taught that way now? No, because we have to understand that our first, second, third graders now have to be taught computer skills.
Yeah.
Now have to be just yes. So as we implement those new things that we've got to do, right? I mean, nobody's going to argue that. We've got to start teaching those students how to use the internet, how to use it effectively, how to use it safely, how to use the keyboard. That's going to shift some things we do. Are we getting rid of cursive? No, but it's not going to be like we used to spend weeks and weeks. Is that?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, you don't need Common Core to tell you to do that. That's just common sense as a teacher and a parent and a person nowadays.
And that's
So
not
you
Common
don't need
Core.
Common Core for that.
Yes.
I want to go back to a couple of things. Number one, you were talking about math and you said how much better math is going to be. Well, the only mathematician on the Common Core validation team refused to sign off on it because he said the standards were so horrible. That doesn't tell me that.
And I don't think.
Excuse me, I wasn't finished. That doesn't tell me that math is going to be great. And you also said this Common Core is gonna make children think, research, take notes. Why do you need Common Core to do that? You can teach that. Teachers have been teaching that since there were classrooms. Well, they haven't used it recently, but they used to teach it. And why do we need, longitudinal tracking systems that track our children, their everyday lives,
That's
everything they
big
do? I mean,
question.
to me, this whole system is imposing a lot of things
But now
that you don't need to do if you're gonna be a good teacher. Being a good teacher requires a lot of other things, but not all this bureaucracy and standards and tests that's being pushed on us from above. And, you know, I don't see the reason for this other than the real reason. The federal government's holding the purse strings, and they're not gonna give you grant money if you don't implement this. And that's the whole crux of the
And
matter.
it is part of it is money. You know, part of it was, when I first thought, I just thought it was to apply for Race for the Top money, but it was not actually to apply for Race for the Top money. It was to apply for the waiver for the Elementary and Secondary Act. Yeah, we knew, like I said, by this year, not every child in Mississippi was gonna be 100% prevention. And you know, even if they're 100% proficient in Mississippi, does that compare them to our Massachusetts kids or our Florida kids? You know, we're trying to make sure that we've got the same background, that.
So if we didn't
Why?
adopt Common Core, we wouldn't have gotten that waiver, and we would have been held accountable to every child being proficient?
We would have lost the money.
Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
yeah, we would lost money, right, yeah, you would have lost
Because
money.
it's a federal,
Yeah.
waiver.
It's a
Let me go
federal
back, because
waiver.
I wanna make sure we address the questions you have, not that you're gonna leave and say, oh, I feel wonderful. But when you talk about, those are things that we didn't need Common Core for, because that's things that you all got in education, because that was like a common, it used to be taught. Like when Vera started talking about the standards we used to have, it was a state standard. And so it's nothing, we're not talking about our teachers, because I was that teacher in the classroom that was teaching the state curriculum. Okay, that's what the state told us to teach, and we weren't teaching deep thinking. We weren't teaching this presentation
So the
skills.
state stopped you from doing that?
No, the state standards, that was not a part of it. It is
But
actually
it didn't
part
stop,
of the
I
standards.
mean, you could have done that anyway.
I could have, but it didn't, it was not a goal set for me as a teacher. So in Common Core standards, those do not tell our teachers what to teach, what to use to teach. It's, like Vera said, it's goals for the classroom, and it's I-CAN statements for students. So then the teachers know, yes, this is something I have to meet this year.
Because you've got to meet a standardized test.
You have to,
And you've got to
meet.
And,
To me, this is not about teaching our children, it's about standardization and funding.
but our end standardization that we look at right now is our ACT scores, or our sectors. You know, right now, as far as, that's the only norm test in our students have, is ACTs.
But the ACT and SAT have been revised for Common Core goals.
And again, dumbed down.
They've just been revised.
Yeah,
And
they don't have to write an
vocabulary
essay
in the
anymore.
SAT has been dumbed down.
I have a question. You keep saying, you know, Common Core doesn't tell our teachers how to teach. The district does.
The district selects curriculum.
Okay, right. So the district sends our teachers these books and says, this is you have to use these books, you have to. Well, by the time they get through that, they're lucky they have time to feed them lunch, much less go extra.
But that
So
textbook is not their Bible, that textbook is their tool.
if they don't
That-
use
that
the
textbook
textbook,
is-
are they?
It's not their Bible,
But
that's
remember,
their tool. That's something in their toolbox.
So they don't have to use it,
I
is what you're
will-
saying?
They have to teach the skills, they have to figure out on their own. You know, we've got many new teachers, that's why we decided to go with a textbook.
Right.
You know, it's
And-
because you need a guide, but that's
Sure.
not your Bible, that's something in your toolbox.
But I'm saying, if I'm a teacher, in Picayune School, I can't go by here,
Yeah.
in Picayune School District, I can say, okay, they spent all this money on these new textbooks, but you know what? I'm not really liking them. I'm not gonna use them, I'm gonna teach them the standards my way.
And if you can teach a standard your way, you can teach.
and at PRC, you don't have to use the
And-
textbook. And remember that in both of our school districts, that, Vera and I, being curriculum coordinators, are also over textbook adoption.
Right.
And she and I don't sit in our office and say, this is the book I want. We form committees at our schools, and so your child's teacher may not be on that committee, but there are teachers on that committee that select. I don't select the book, I'm there to advocate for teachers. Vera is there to advocate for teachers. That's our biggest role in our district. So, you know, they are selecting those textbooks that they use. And yes, we have I could name one right now at Career, probably the best teacher if we look at scores, but if your child has her, I'm sure you would agree, the best teachers in our district, and she'll use the textbook some days and she's not gonna other days, because she can do it better using online resources, she can do it better grabbing a workbook she has in her closet. So yeah, any way you can get it across. But
Okay.
we like to supply, we want to supply textbooks, but it's also part of our accreditation that we have to supply textbooks.
Sure, I just wanted to be able to say, you know, when my child's having issues with, you know, this particular story or whatever, and I'm being told, well, you know, this is what we're given and we have to use them, you know, they put a lot of money into this stuff. I can say, no, you don't. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to quote misinformation, so.
Okay, you had a question?
Yeah, say we didn't get federal funding anymore. Would you as a district, regardless of how the state capitol feels and say they didn't mandate any sort of standards for you, would you as a district still implement the curricula that is required by Common Core? Or would you have done something different? That's kind of what I want to know.
It would be very similar as far as what we're trying to teach. I mean, the research part of it for our children, the part to go through, that part of it, yes, it would be.
And you think that every district in 41 states across the country would have adopted the same curriculum without the monetary incentives given by the federal government?
I don't think we can answer that.
I don't know. I know that we have, we're part of a consortium that is a lower, part of the state. And there's actually people in our consortium who has gone to work with the Park assessment, math teachers and different teachers who have gone to help write these sample test items. I feel like what we're doing for our children to prepare them, what I want to do is to make our children be able to
Right.
think critically.
Well, the issue I have is not really with the curriculum itself. I actually have a math degree, and I've looked at some of the math teaching, and I agree that it does teach mathematics at a more abstract level that might come in handy if you're planning on learning higher mathematics. My concern is one of self-determination, whether or not our local taxpayers and our local parents are really the ones who are being able to decide the fate of their students, or if that's being decided at a higher level, which I'm uncomfortable with.
And, just saying, you were saying something about the data stuff. The data information started, our Mississippi data system started in 1989. That's how long we've been putting our student data into a data.
But the longitudinal data tracking system, which is the basis of Common Core, was 3 years ago, if I recall, the legislature passed that. And that was the precursor to Common Core, because this plan was all laid out in Washington years ago of how they were gonna march everybody down this trail, whether we wanted to be marched or not. The state legislature passed the data tracking system, the grants, you mentioned I've forgotten the race to the top to do all that. I mean, all that was put in place so that the bricks were there, and we had one way to go down this chute, and that was it. And I guess my concern is, my blunt question is, other states, not many, a few, have opted out. They've decided not to do this. How can we do that? Because I feel that the best teacher is a teacher who has a lot of flexibility, and the best parent is a parent who watches what's going on and has input to their child and is concerned with their child. You're going to say, yeah, not all parents do that. No, they don't. Not all teachers do that. No, they don't. But I'd rather have that than a system of standardized tests that we're basically being held at the point of a dollar gun to implement. And how can we opt out of it?
And it's like I said, the best thing we can do right now is to do our national congressman to say, make it a priority to reauthorize ESEA.
And that will allow us to opt out of this?
It will, and I think what other states are doing, they're not opting, they're saying they're opting out of Common Core, but they're opting out of the assessment part of it. They're opting out of the park or the smart amount. They're still accountable. You're still accountable according to ESEA to test these children, to track these children. Mississippi, we test them every year from 3rd grade on. I think the ESEA tells us that you actually have to track them. There's 3, maybe 4 different things that you have to track them. It would not be as many, not a test every single year, but you would be testing along the way. But not every single year when you have to test. Mississippi's testing part is probably stronger than any other as far as how many times we have to test a child. It's at least as strong as any other states, if not a little bit stronger. But the waiver and the ESEA says, and I wish I had it with me, but you can look at it and see that there's at least 3 or 4 points that you have to test, and it's not every single year, which we in Mississippi choose to do.
What about the subjects y'all been dodging, like science and evolution and religion, history? Is they setting the standards on that too, or are our students just gonna still not knowing who made us, or are we gonna be created by a spark of light, or we got a creator? Is this gonna be issued in school or not? What story?
We still have our state standards in science and in history.
What
So
does it
those
say?
will not, those aren't going anywhere. So that's not Common Core.
Oh.
That's our what we've had since 2010.
So they don't have no guidelines on what the state's gonna tell y'all to teach in this, am I correct?
At this point in time.
At this point in time.
See, because if I tell you right now, no, they're never gonna,
It's a
and then
touchy
we get a
subject when
mandate.
you're talking about
So
religion
at
and
this point in
evolution
time.
and stuff.
Once they've snuck
Oh,
in.
we're gonna teach evolution to my kid, and I'm in teaching him about God all his life. You know, I want the equal amount be told about the good Lord on it also.
And I'll
You
be
know.
the number one person that goes, I've told everybody, if I could sit in jail, talk about God.
Yes, yes. And
Somebody
then
wrote-
again about history, we need to know about our American history, not Allah and all these other countries. What about our, is there any guidelines on that, or are we gonna have to follow through the guidelines of what the
Always
state
world
says?
history.
It's our state curriculum.
Just If
it
it's state and you guys are telling us that the states, our Mississippi state standards aren't high enough, as in, you know, comparative to Massachusetts or whatever, who writes that? Who do we need to go to say, okay, in science and everything, don't go to Common Core.
Yeah.
Let's create our own. Let's, you know, copy Massachusetts if that's the thing, you know, whatever.
And remember that the science and the social studies is gonna be, the informational text is gonna be put into the reading. And we still, as of today, have hold of what we get to choose on those reading lists. You know, we're not dictating a reading list, if this is what you will read. We still have hold of what they can read.
What about literature as far as,
Literature, yeah, that goes.
you know, I mean, my child, Mom, my story this week is soil. You know,
Well,
it's like
but
to get
there's
7-year-olds to sit and read
Yeah.
soil.
But there should be a story that goes, I mean, that, you know,
There was a story and
that goes along with it.
that I went
More
and
of a-
said, okay, this is the parts of soil. I mean, it's hard.
And that's the informational
they're
text.
losing the fun of
The enjoyment,
reading.
and it's-
And that's what's gonna drive our children is loving reading,
Yeah.
loving math, you know? I mean, that's the part. If you get them emotionally involved, and Common Core takes that away. Common Core is boring them to tears and making them not care.
But it doesn't have to be. And that's where, and I will be honest, you know, as I said, they've given all this stuff to the teachers, and we really have not had time to sit down and train. One of the things I asked the legislators to do is, hey, if we even have to back 5 days of school time and give us 5 extra days to train these teachers the way we need to, give us that time, because like I said, we have these 10 new initiatives coming at us every which direction, and you've got 7 training days.
They don't
You know, and you
know.
can't train them in 7 days.
They don't know, and as they said, they're trying to prepare students for tests that haven't even been written.
And two.
How fair is that?
Yeah, and.
And we agree, we don't disagree with
Yeah,
you, but then, I mean,
and like I said, the test, and I'm back to, forget about the test, let's look at the end product of the child. What is it that we can do for this child?
And I agree with that, except that our children are held accountable to those
Yeah.
tests.
And
They don't go
and
to
our
the next
teachers
grade.
are,
He
yeah.
won't graduate if he doesn't pass the test.
Yeah,
And
it is, and like
that
I
being
said,
said also, do you have the teachers ready to take this on? I don't know how many times I've had teachers write me a letter home saying, my son has trouble learning this or having some problems. I'm not the teacher. That's why my taxpayers' money is teaching that teacher to teach my son when I have to work for a living. I'm a single parent, by the way, and I have nobody at home to teach this kid. I'm solely dependent on this teacher that my taxpayers' money should be paying, and you know good and well what comes in more work is gonna add in more money. That means our taxes might have to go back up on that, because they gonna want more money.
They just
Is
got
this-
turned
am I
down
correct
for a
or-
pay raise.
Yeah.
That's right. Am I correct for this, or am I saying something wrong? I'm
No,
looking
you're
at it
not.
wrong, or what?
You're-
I
yeah.
can tell you, I know of 8 teachers over 3 schools in Picayune who have taught for 25+ years. That's it, this year it's done. I quit.
Yeah. What a shame.
Yeah,
and we
it is.
agree, and
It
it's
is.
it's very
Yeah.
sad.
This is a trend. We have been going for years. More and more tests, more and more standardization, more and more money, less and less education, dumber kids, it's going the wrong direction, folks. I mean, that's my problem
Well,
with this.
and-
We did a lot better when you had the little schoolrooms, locally controlled, parents involved, and they said what happened. And I know that nobody wants to hear this because nobody wants to be out of a job. But I bet if somebody did a cost-benefit analysis of all the bureaucracy, regulations, training, everything, testing and everything, versus forget the federal money and do what we need to do with our kids and our local money, I bet you become better off with the latter.
And you know, I'll go back to that one. When you and I went to school, and when we got there, it was the people who still wanted to be in school that were in school. There was not that law that said you're gonna go to school when you're 17, and even if I didn't want to go to school, you got to, and that's what that law tells us right now. That's one of our regulation laws now. You know, and as far as even another thing, you know, do we wanna change something? Change this career in tech, because, you know, to me, when I was in school, they did career in tech, that was actually to go teach somebody a trade. Now career in tech has this test that they don't want anything except the top of the you know, the top of the pick, you know, and that's not our kids who need that career in tech. We need to be able to teach every one of our students that when you get out, hey, if I go out and I learn, somebody teaches me carpentry, I can make a dang good living being a carpenter. You know, I have friends who are the best carpenters in the world. Could they sit down and do geometry on a piece of paper? Probably not, but they can sit there and tell you, I mean, they can do those lines quicker than anybody, and, you know, they can apply. You know, this is one of the things we want to change. Let's see what we can do to change career tech. Let's see what we can do to meet the needs.
And who
of
makes that
everybody.
change?
That would be part of the state. That's not a fed.
We having the
We
largest,
can't do a darn thing, because nobody will listen to us.
we having the largest,
Legislature has tried to pass a bill to get us out of Common Core, and it wouldn't get out of committee.
we're having the largest elementary in the state of Mississippi. Where does our elementary rank amongst student grades, amongst Picayune, Poplarville, stuff like
Yeah,
that?
we're
Supposed to be.
pretty high. I mean, you
We're
would.
pretty decent.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know our elementary ranking, I mean, I'll give you my name.
It's the largest in the state of Mississippi, or be
It's
well.
not anymore.
It ain't.
It was when we were one elementary school, we used to be one elementary, K-5, when Miss Welch was there, and then we split it, and it's no longer the largest. But if you look at a K-5 count, we have 1,500 students, it's the largest, but we're actually 2 schools now. But, across our district, I know our rankings, but I would have to pull, our school rankings, I don't have
Yeah.
those memorized.
And another thing is like that,